Hey
Whatever you
everybody.
5 gigs. Hey, Gregor.
Are you
Hey
always
there.
on Skype sending pics and uploading videos and just doing everything?
Um, yeah, I mean, just not on Skype. I mean, I've uploaded videos, just from my camera
Right.
software on my laptop, via my Samsung as a hotspot, and 5 gigs is a lot. I mean, I think if you watched, if you sat there and binge watched Netflix all month long, then you'll probably burn that up pretty quick. But I don't know. Greg would be the one to know.
What's that?
He's Well, Eric was talking about, he's got a plan. He just got a new plan where it's uh, unlimited talk, and he could be on Skype unlimited, but he's only got, as far as data, 1 gig. And I was just keep telling him that I use my phone for work, and it's when I travel, I use it as a hotspot and do all of my computer work through it because it's always faster than internet at the hotel. And I rarely get over 2, and the most I think I've ever had is 4 gigs in a month.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
hard.
I think that,
Yeah, if all you're doing is voice, it's going to be hard to like. If you were just Skyping voice, it'd be hard to ever get over a gig. But your phone's checking email. It's you know, uh,
Yeah,
you almost have to just the nice thing is if you have you can see online usually, or even on your phone,
yeah,
usually
my phone will tell me how many gigs I'm using.
Yeah, and it's just best just to keep it on. Everybody's different. Like my phone, I have too many silly apps that are always chattering and things like that. So, like, I tend to have I don't know. I don't think I use a gig though at all. And then sometimes I'll like listen to a YouTube on the way home. I'll
Mhm.
like I plug my phone into my car stereo, and then I'll just pick a little bit like a YouTube I wanted to hear. Somebody talking about something. I'll listen to that on the way home, and I hardly ever hit a gig.
Yeah, I've streamed. I've been on the road for 3 or 4 days. 2 or 3 times in a month, and watched Netflix or whatever, and streamed it all through my phone. And like I said, I've never hit more than 4. But I mean, it's doable. I'm sure. If you, like I said, if you binge watch all weekend on your phone, you're going to use up some data. But
well, one of the major excitements for me for this is that you've known for a long time. Though I haven't made videos and whatnot because I don't have really the camera resources. But this iPhone 5S has takes some really nice video,
yeah, it does.
and I
My
and
son
I
has
can
that phone.
always I can always jock it over to the to my desktop via Wi-Fi and upload it overnight. If I have to.
Well, yeah, you can, or you can upload straight from your phone. And I don't, like I said, I don't think that's gonna a 2 or 3 minute video isn't gonna be that much data. But yeah, the smartphones, Eric, are, I mean,
Smart,
they're smart, and the cameras on them, um,
badass.
yeah, they're unbelievable. And the only thing I'm gonna tell you is that I've done a lot of videos with my phone. In fact, I've got like 3 hours of China video that I'm editing right now. But I make the rookie mistake or the old person mistake of holding my phone vertically when I'm taking video, and that's not what you do. You turn it on its side,
Right.
and it records it in what is that, 16:9 or whatever, rather
Yeah.
than rather than that, so you don't have that stupid looking, blacked out sides on your video. Now, I found a program, an editor, that lets me crop it so I can make it look somewhat normal, but it'd have been just a lot easier to shoot video with it on its side.
Uh,
So if you do a self video, if you do shoot a video for YouTube, yeah, just make sure it's on its side.
Well, I figure I can just zap it and port it right into Magic's Pro and just expand it to any resolution, size, shrink it, grow it. I mean, there's all kinds of things I can do. I have professional software for such a thing.
Well, there you go. It's just
I
easier when
just
it's
didn't have a
recorded.
camera.
It's just easier when it's recorded in
Right.
16:9 rather than four. What is it? I don't even know what it is. 3:4:4:3.
Some crap.
4:3.
Yeah, yeah.
4:3, 16:9. Now you have
Niner over.
62 by 9.3, which is that new one.
Yeah. Well,
But
let's get
H2,
on with it.
but
Let's get the show on the road.
but is that H264 or H265?
Well,
You know,
Kodak.
that's the 64.
It's
Just
hard.
get out
Yeah.
the Polaroids, take some selfies.
It's
uh,
hard.
well, good. I'm gonna look forward to some Eric videos here coming up pretty quick.
Oh.
This is a 10, right?
This is
Yes,
GnP 10.
GMP 10.
as I have listened to the other 9.
Attaboy. We love you, Eric. You're our steady listener. All right, welcome to GnP, number 10, Guns and Politics. Number 10, I'm Charlie McGrath here in Bozeman, Montana. We have Craig Simpson sitting out there in God's country, Seattle, and Eric Lovely in his undisclosed Colorado location, joining us, our first guest on GnP. And he started shooting me emails or text messages directly after GnP 9 because I was going off on people who are buying just completely, in my opinion, inappropriate handguns for their skill level, and for the amount of time that they're willing to commit to become proficient or, lack of proficiency with said handgun. And Eric said he has a lot to say on that topic. And it isn't just that. We've been wanting to get him on here for the last couple months, but just haven't made it around to getting all of us lined up together. But tonight it's different. It is Wednesday. It's not. It's Tuesday, the 15th of December. And our first guest, Eric Lovely, welcome to the program.
Oh, well, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Very, very welcome.
It's all you. Carry it, man. Boom.
Yeah, run with it. Go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Let's get into, all right, because my friend Ashley, she ended up going out. She bought some crap-ass 9mm, and I still don't remember the name of it, and it doesn't even matter because I'm never going to buy one. But anyway.
Caltech.
It was even worse than a
my
Caltech.
God.
It was worse than a High Point, in my opinion.
High points aren't that bad. They're just ugly and cheap.
They're super ugly. They're top heavy. They're cast pot iron looking things, and but yeah, they function. I mean, the things that I've seen on them. I've never fired one myself, but I've watched a lot of reviews on them, and even though they're classified as a hunk of crap, they actually what did I think Nut and Fancy did a review of High Point, and the failure rate on them was almost zero. So, but anyway, so she took this gun back because she bought it. It was cheap, and she bought it at a gun show. She loopholed it, I guess, and and she talked to me about it, and she hated it because it was too tight to even operate the slide release. And I told her, I said, just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's not functional. And don't be alarmed that you can't operate the thumb release or the slide release. I said, I have an $800 M9A1 that is difficult for me to operate the slide release when it was brand new. And it took 500-600 rounds before the thing was loosened up or whatever, broke in. So that doesn't denote a crappy gun. And so my advice to her was she told me she was going to bring it back to the gun show and go see the same table and ask the guy for her money back and or a trade, for something else. And I really recommended to her, to the point where she even wrote it down. I said, you probably should look at a 357 revolver or a 38 revolver, 357, and then shoot 38 out of it, because it's going to be something that is, in my opinion, a lot more reliable, a lot more user-friendly, and a lot more forgiving of you not knowing what you're doing because you've only shot, 20 rounds out of the thing in a year. And lo and behold, she comes hauling back from the gun show with an SR22, which is the Ruger. It's kind of like the Walther P99, which I own two of. The P22. Yeah, the Walther 22. P22, I think it is. It looks a lot like that, but it's Walther's answer to it. A little 10-shot automatic autoloader in 22 caliber, which, what's that?
It's a paperweight.
It's a plinkster. It's a plinkster gun. And not that I'm anti-22. I think 22 is probably having a good 22 rifle and a good supply of 22 ammo, I think is a very, very great idea for any kind of breakdown crisis situation for a lot of reasons. One, you can shoot it out of multiple platforms. Two, it's quiet. Three, if you know what you're doing, it will kill any animal on this planet or person. So, I mean, it has uses. Four, you can pack 500 rounds and not even know you're carrying it. So, I mean, the 22 is a great gun. But if you can only have one gun and you want to buy a handgun, and your number one reason, as was hers, for buy this was personal defense, I think it's a horrible choice. Not only is it a horrible choice, it's even a worse choice that it's in a platform that's a semi-automatic. And Eric and I were talking before we got a hold of Craig, and I said it might be a great gun to have if you have a similar type 9mm, whatever, 40, 45, similar type autoloader. It might be a great gun to have to take to the range and put a bunch of rounds through it, because the one thing you can guarantee that's going to happen with a 22 rimfire, I don't care if it's a Kimber or if it's the best brand there ever has been built, one thing you can guarantee that's going to happen is you're going to have all kinds of malfunctions with that gun. It's just the nature of a rimfire cartridge. They get bent very easy. They are prone to having, 1 out of 20 rounds that don't fire when you pull the trigger. They're prone to not extracting. They're prone to having feed issues. I mean, I don't know what the percentages are. I suppose this is data we should record when we're out shooting. I shoot a lot of 22. I shoot a lot of 17 HMR. I shoot and a lot of my 9mm. But I would say I don't know. Eric, put a number on it. What is the percentage versus a centerfire cartridge that a rimfire is going to give you some kind of problems? Is it twice as much, 5 times as much? I mean,
more in the range of 12 or 13 times.
Yeah.
Simply because the way that the shell is designed, the way the cartridge is made and what it's made out of. And you have to understand that the 22 round is mass produced by every idiot and their brother. Okay. And it's always focused on cheap. Got to make the cheapest thing I can. Some 22 rounds, depending on the manufacturer, if you drop the box of rounds on the concrete floor in the store, pick that box up, put it back on the shelf, and get a different one.
Yeah.
That's how gingerly they can be.
It's super thin. You can dent it with your fingernail.
Yes, but I will agree, personally, I'll start by saying this. If you're going to own a 22 of any kind, then I would slate you as either someone who's goofing off, it's one end of the spectrum or the other, someone who's goofing off or someone who's extremely serious about training. Because the 22, as long as you get it in what's called the build stage of whatever weapon you have, so let's say you have a magazine-driven 45 as your main deployment weapon and you're into that, then you're going to want to get a very similar, probably the same brand name 22 with the same similar manufactured action and so forth, and put 1,000 rounds through it every other month, so that when you react to jams, your excess feeds, whatever it is, dud shots, whatever it is that you have going on, it's going to be a very similar operation, very similar muscle management from the smaller version of the same exact gun as the larger version.
Great example of that is a Ruger.
Yes.
I have a 1911, but I also have a Ruger 2245, which was actually more expensive than my 1911, but the Ruger 2245 is a very high quality 22. I mean, very high. This is a $700 gun, right? It's not off the shelf. It isn't, but with the trigger job I had put on it and the ridiculous magazine disconnect I had removed out of it, I'm about $700 into this gun. And the controls, the angle of the grip is identical to a 1911. The controls are in the exact same spot as a 1911. And I can go out with my 10-round magazine, and I can experience misfeeds and jams and failures to fire and failures to extract all day long out of my $700 gun. Primarily, it isn't the gun. It's like Eric said, it's the ammunition. And, maybe I can run mini mags through there and have, 100 rounds without any problem, but then maybe I put in some cheap ammo just so I can have the fun and experience of handling malfunctions, because it's going to malfunction.
Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest things here is that you guys have done a lot of talking on the subject of firearms and their applications, and I personally, to me, we're deciding on the end result in different ways because of different things.
Elaborate on that a bit.
like, okay, when we look at this, I don't really care about the fun factor. I've shot enough. I've been shot at. I have done the gambit that there is that you can do with bullets and weaponry, and to me, it's about life and death. Something I take very seriously, and I personally believe if you're going to put a firearm in your hand and you're not going to train, then someone should take the firearm away from you.
Right. That's
Because
a great
even a
point.
22 round misfired into your neighbor's house can kill them.
Well,
I've known many gentlemen in my lifetime that deer hunt, elk hunt, moose hunt with a 22 rifle. They shoot it right in the snout, ricochets up into the brain cavity, and brings the creature down with a 22 weapon. So do not think that a 22 weapon is not deadly.
yeah,
So
no doubt about it. And the other point is, honest to God, when it comes to my friend Ashley, my example, Ashley, honestly, I am more afraid. Look, I don't want her to have this false sense of security because she's got a pistol. Because I truly believe that there's a high likelihood, 10 rounds in that magazine, there's a high likelihood that one of them is going to misfire, or one of them is going to, she's going to have a hang fire or failure to extract. And if she doesn't know instantly, within, a split second on how to clear it and chamber another round to get that weapon functional again, guess what's going to happen? The bad guy's going to have that weapon in about 2 seconds. And more than likely, she's going to be killed with the same weapon that she thought was cute and sexy. So she picked it up at the gun show and walked past the ugly snub-nosed 38, which made it, maybe it was only 5 or 6 rounds, but would have went bang every time she pulled the trigger.
Yeah, there are many numbers that you can look at, but if you look at the FBI's numbers where they tell you that it's like you are 300 and some odd percent, I can't remember, it's over 300% more likely to be killed with your own handgun.
Yeah.
Well, that is lumping all non-trained weapon owners with trained weapon owners.
Right.
Trained weapon owners are under 1% being killed with their own weapon. That means 99 point X amount of percent of the time, the owner of the weapon that trains is never disarmed and is never killed by his own weapon.
Yeah, that's right. And that's just common sense. And let's drag Craig into this. Craig, Eric and I were talking about a class that they put on down there in his undisclosed bunker location. It sounds a lot like some of the training that you've done there. Did you guys, when you did the last group of not your coworkers that you just drugged to the range here recently, but in classes that you've taken yourself, did you guys ever cover these kind of statistics on, what percentage of gun owners lose their weapon versus, that are untrained versus those that have taken the time? We're not talking making another career out of this either. I mean, this is, you take a quality course where you're ending up shooting 1,000 rounds over 2 or 3 days, and then you maintain that, even if it's just a couple hundred rounds a month. In my opinion, that is training enough to be proficient and save your life. Certainly, buying it, putting a couple mags through, and then putting it on the shelf and pretending like you have home defense is a recipe for disaster. Craig, did you guys cover any of these numbers?
I know we covered numbers like that. I'm not sure if we covered that exact number, but I know one thing that people got across there was that you'll often hear somebody say, well, I'm not sure if I could actually, use the gun. I'm not sure if I could shoot somebody, or they actually will have that fear. Exactly. Maybe it can make the situation worse.
Sure.
There's a good possibility that it might get taken from me. And when it comes to all those fears, I know now, I've learned over time, really what I tell people is, if you do train, you won't have those fears, because really it's a lack of confidence and it's just not knowing what to do. It's also not having worked over those scenarios in your mind. Actually, what you've gone over in your mind, even if you haven't done it, if the situation ever arises, you will be much more likely to actually react, correctly and effectively in those situations. And so that's one of the nice things about training and also thinking is, you're changing your car tire. You didn't want you didn't know. It's like a perfect example is you get a flat tire. You're a man, so you don't call AAA. You're changing your own damn tire. It's nighttime. A car stops behind you. The high beams are on. People get out. You can't see who's coming towards you. What are you going to do in that situation?
Yeah.
If you've thought about it, you have a lot better chance of surviving that situation, and you don't even know if it's a threat or not yet. So
Right. Yeah.
I hear a lot of stuff like that, and I mean, somebody I set up recently with, they really just didn't. So they have a shotgun for home defense, and they really just were not sure about, shooting somebody with their shotgun. They have a handgun too, but they decided, actually, after working with that person, they have the beanbag rounds in their shotgun now. They're not
Right.
lethal, but if you're up close, they're really, really nasty. Within like house reach,
Sure.
they're nasty, and that person through some training and some effort realized that, okay, I can't shoot somebody and know I'm going to kill them, but I could shoot the crap out of them with these beanbag rounds and then run over there and beat them in the head. And some people might, judge that and say it's not tactically sound, but it's all that
I
person.
would.
Yeah, but it's all that person's going to do. They will not shoot somebody.
Well, they're better off to run. I mean, seriously,
yeah.
And that's one thing that the point I was trying to make about this false sense of security. Look, somebody comes in your house and they've just done, 2 grams of coke, and they're home invading you because they're going to take your shit so they can go buy more coke. Guess what?
Eat the beanbags.
Yeah, they're gonna take those beanbag rounds, and they're gonna, it might stumble them a bit, but they're coming. They're coming.
Exactly.
So
It's just going to make them matter.
yeah, so that person with a beanbag, with a taser or with a beanbag gun or whatever. Look, folks. Here's what you need to understand. When the cops do this, right? When you see cops in videos tasering somebody or beanbagging somebody, look at the bigger picture. I guarantee you somebody is standing there with an M4 pointing at that exact same person they're tasering or beanbagging. Why? Because guess what? That crap doesn't always work, and they're going to kill them if they don't respond in the way that they want to. The hope is you're going to nail somebody with a beanbag that's going to knock the wind out of them. They're going to say ouch and go to the ground and realize this battle is over, I can't win, and they're going to comply. If they don't, and I mean, you've seen the videos, instantaneously, if they're not in the compliance mode, they're going to die. Why? Because cops are not going to take a chance of this person coming up and going at them. So if you're in a home with a beanbag gun or a taser, look, forget it. You hear somebody in your house, go out the window. Run, get away, because the chances are it's not going to end in your favor. It could shoot him in the head with the beanbag gun. It's probably going to kill him, and and you'll survive that. But otherwise, just get out, unass the area, as they used to say in the military, because it's foolish to think. Look, there's a reason why we have guns, right? There's a reason for the Second Amendment. I'm like Eric. I've been in a combat zone. I've shot at people. I've been shot at. And Craig has as well. It's nothing I ever want to do. I will run. I will hide. I will get out of the area. I have nothing in my home that is worth killing somebody over unless it's my flesh and blood, right? Anything else they can have. I'm not going to kill them because it's not, I don't want to do it. I don't want to shoot somebody. However, if the situation arises where I'm putting that scenario is my life, my child's life, my loved one's lives versus somebody coming in and taking that life, they're going to die. They're going to die on that night in my home. And I don't want to do it, but it's going to happen. And, so I think you're right, Craig. It's really important to take that kind of training and understand what kind of person you are. Can you do it? And if the answer is no, you can't, well, then I think you need to rethink your options. And your number one priority needs to be A, security on your home, B, how to get out if you are put in that situation. Grabbing a taser or a beanbag gun, you're asking to be murdered. That's what you're asking for. I don't know the stat.
What happens when you have nowhere to go? What are you going to do then?
You're going to die.
It's just over. See, to me, people want to mess around with all of it and this, that, and other. It's not being mean. It's not being bravado. It's not being anything. It boils down to this. If there is a reason why I have picked up my weapon, then the ultimate outcome to me is one of two things I'm asking myself. Do I want to be judged by 12 or carried by 6? That's it.
Yeah. Well,
and my opinion will always be judged by 12. I will shoot you dead. I will not care. I am not aiming to wound. I am aiming to terminate you. That is my exact motivation. If not, then I wouldn't have picked up the firearm. A firearm is not something to scare someone with. It's not a toy. It is a weapon of termination. And I'm going to tell you, ladies, home invasion. If you're thinking home invasion, back to the original thing, I guess there are one or two weapons that you need if you are a female, because you are female for many reasons. But the two weapons is going to be, I will suggest, a Smith & Wesson hammerless. There is 4 different models, so I'm not going to give them all to you. Look them up. Smith & Wesson 357 revolvers. They're called spine busters. I've heard them called gut busters, and so on and so forth. They're designed to fire out of your purse. Okay, you will stick your hand in your purse. You will use the allures or whatever, because in most cases, women who are attacked, the criminals generally feel very bravado and they get up real close. You keep your hand in your purse, you put your hand on the gun, you press the purse against their stomach, you pull the trigger, the conversation's over, you're going home and having cocoa. That's it. Okay, if you're in your home, then your wall is your friend. If you're refusing to train, then you get yourself a nice standard shotgun, pump shotgun, with a nice extended butt on it. You put the butt right up against the wall, you point it at the open door, and you pull the trigger. Let the wall absorb the shot. It's a perfect straight line. You can't miss it because it's pressed directly up against the wall. And that is the only way that you could have no training, and still, if that shotgun could fail, the handgun is probably going to be the best. But the reason why in a non-training situation it becomes worthwhile is because how you apply the gun. You press it directly against their body.
Yeah, so you don't
miss. Yeah. And anywhere you hit, if you take any 357 Magnum and you put it up against any male's body, I don't care if he's 400 pounds, and you pull the trigger at least once, he's going to stop touching you.
Yeah, he's going to.
Let me guarantee you, he will stop raping you, beating you, molesting your child, whatever it is that he's doing. He's going to stop right then and right there, and you probably won't have to shoot him again, even if you shot him in the stomach.
I don't know. Okay, I don't disagree with you. That is I think that's a fatal wound. However, I found it very interesting, Eric and Craig. I spent, 4 hours of my life that I'm never getting back reading the FBI report on why they're switching from 40 cal. They were 9mm. They went to 40 cal. They realized that even the high pressure 40 cal round didn't really produce any more permanent wound cavity and wasn't any more effective. But as far as the severity of the wound over the 9mm, but it did have a negative effect in that, smaller framed agents. And, in general, I've owned 40s and I'm not as good a shot with them as I am with my 9mm, and the reason is simple. It has a lot more felt recoil, and reacquiring the target is more challenging than it is on the low pressure 9mm round. And so they've determined that more rounds, better play shots, are a bigger advantage than the higher pressure 40 cal or 40, the lower pressure 45. It's still the 9mm is the right choice. But what I found interesting in that report is that handgun rounds in general, what they found is even the Magnum rounds up to 357. Now it started to change a little bit when it got into the 44 Magnums and 50 to 500, with these 400 or 500 grain bullets. But even some of the Magnum rounds up to 357, inevitably, it was really interesting to read, because inevitably when an assailant or whatever is shot with a 9mm, 357, 40, 45, none of these handgun rounds, traveling at 1,200, 1,800 feet a second, in some cases 900 in the 45, none of them have instantaneous stopping power unless it hits them, obviously in the head or the spine. The perpetrator, the assailant, the criminal is going to be able to, let's say you shoot them through the spleen or even through a lung. They're going to have the wherewithal to keep doing what they're doing. But what the study showed was, in studying these hundreds and hundreds of shootings, is that the vast majority of people that were shot, they took a knee and said, I'm out, I'm done, because they've got a bullet in them. They're terrified that they're going to die. And in a lot of cases, they did die. But, the number one stopping factor was the shock of being shot. But if they were hopped up on coke or PCP or whatever, they had the wherewithal, they had the ability to continue for several minutes doing what they were doing before they bled out or whatever the case may be. Now, that in no way is saying that you're wrong, Eric. I think the shock of a 357 round in your gut is going to, unless you're just whacked out on something, it's going to stop
at that
you.
range with muzzle velocity, ballistics, I mean, at that range, if it's pressed directly up against your body, it's not a bullet wound, it's a bullet cavity.
Yeah, right.
You're talking 6-7 inch across hole, and probably at least another third bigger than that on the expanse out the backside.
You're probably ripping their stomach open. I mean, not to be gross, but you're probably ripping it open just with the muzzle blast.
Intestines, kidneys, the whole 9 yards is going to be hanging out the backside. That's why I say for a female, it's the ultimate end of the story.
All right,
I live.
Yeah, well, that's the goal. You want to survive. So. And
you kind of got me off track into talking about the pistols because I'm going to say something that will probably amaze you, especially after reading for 4 hours and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why I carry a handgun at all is because people would lose their mind if I was walking downtown with my AK-47.
That's a great point.
The handgun is pretty much nigh on useless. The handgun is a transitional or last-ditch effort weapon in a world without rule of law, combat, military situation. On your everyday venture to the store, it's still being used as a transition weapon, even though people are training to use it as kill, because they're involving smaller numbers, close range, specifics of the situation where the pistol seems to excel at the job that it's presented with. But it's really, when you talk about, I'm going to go out into the field, you really have to understand that from a military logistical point of view, it is not an AK platform. It's not an AR platform. It's not a 9mm platform. Those are weapons. You are the weapons platform. The weapon that you deploy is based on the stability and the military readiness and advanced knowledge of the platform itself. How much weight can the platform hold? How much distance can the platform carry that weight? At the end of that distance, can the platform deploy the said main battle weapon and execute battle commands or battle activity at that time?
Mm-hmm.
So when I think about it, well, my main weapon is an AR or a AK-47. We'll make both people happy by saying that. Really, it's an AK-47, accepts no substitute. The reason
I would disagree with that.
The reason why then I would carry, I would still carry a 45 because I can still handle the weight. But you have to break down everything you do. If you're in the field and you're going to the store, then the weight, the amount of ammunition in your weapon, and so on and so forth, really isn't a calculation for you because you're thinking about going to the grocery store and getting home.
Right.
If you're out scouting, if you're looking for water, you're looking for food, you're looking at the present road, if you're in an actual combat situation where we all believe that this is going to go revolutionary, whatever you want to say, you have to divide up the physical amount of weight. The very first thing you need to do is find you a nice big military duffel bag and stuff it with as many rocks as you can, put it on and carry it around. Okay, and once you figure that out, only 10% of that weight can be dedicated to your handgun and its ammunition, period. I don't care what you like. I don't care what you think is fancy. I don't care what you think is pretty. I don't care what you think is the most killing piece of weapon in the world. I don't care. I don't care because it's a transition weapon. It is a weapon used to transition you during magazine changes. If somebody pops out on top of you, you directly three-point sling transition from your main battle weapon to your handgun. Bang, 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 bang. As many rounds as you need to put on that target to knock it down. Reacquire your main battle weapon, do your magazine change, and get back on point.
Yeah,
the reality is that a pistol is pretty much truly useless.
No, I don't disagree with that, and we have spent a lot of time talking about handguns. We did on the last program. In the military, Craig, I want you to jump in here a little bit because your experience in the military as well. I carried a sidearm, but it was known then that thing. The thing that I've heard and said is, I like my handgun. I'll use it to fight my way to my rifle because that is what's going to save my life. That is the high velocity killing weapon that I can eliminate targets from 1 foot out to 400 yards with no problem whatsoever, and is going to have the capacity and the stopping power and the reliability that a handgun just isn't going to. So yeah, I mean the handgun, when you think about it, look, I have one of the most accurate production out of the box handguns ever made, which is the Beretta 92F or the M9A1. You know, those are notorious for their accuracy out to about 50 yards. And you know, when you think about it, for a handgun, that's a long shot. And you know, most effectiveness of a handgun is going to be about 21 feet. Anything past that 7-yard mark, yeah, you better, you know, unless you're just ice water in your veins, you know, it's going to be more luck than anything else hitting it. So, Eric, I could not agree with that more. I mean, in fact, if the, you know what, hit the fan, if it was a breakdown crisis, I absolutely would have my or I was going to say M4, but it's my AR-15 slung, whatever I did. If I was going on a food run, a fuel run, I would gladly leave the pistol at home if I was carrying, you know, my battle rifle or my assault rifle. I would probably carry both just as a backup because, you know what, sometimes your M4 or your AR-15 is going to malfunction and you need a backup. So just like a knife, at the end of the day, there's your pyramid. You're going to fight your way to your handgun with your knife. You're going to fight your way to your rifle with your pistol, and you're going to go to work with your rifle. Craig, I know you've done handgun courses. In fact, you've taken you're too polite. You're not going to jump in, so I'm going to drag you into the conversation. You've taken coworkers out to shoot. Your thoughts? Is a handgun just an effective tool to get to your rifle, or is that your, you know what hits the fan, primary weapon?
Well, when I was in the military, the officers always envied the enlisted guys because the enlisted guys got to carry an M16, and that's what we had. We had the older M16s. We got the
A1s.
Yeah, so we had those in my unit, and we upgraded towards the end of the time I was in. But still, you know, like I say, the officers envied us because if the fight is so close, you're using a pistol, it's really a bad day. I mean, that's clear.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear because, you know, officers, you know, I know that like if you read Civil War stories, officers had their nice handguns sent to them from home. Same thing applied, you know, throughout wars, throughout history. But understand that the handgun that was on the side of the officer, that wasn't to shoot the enemy. That was to encourage the enlisted troops that were 3 feet away from him to go over the wall or to get out of the trench or not to turn and run the other way. And throughout history, that handgun by the officers was more likely to kill one of his own soldiers than it was, you know, an enemy. Yeah, would they use it if they were overrun? Sure. But, you know, the handgun, you know,
well,
go ahead.
That's technically, Charlie, what it was issued for. But then you have to understand that by their standards in warfare, the pistol really hasn't changed. You have to understand the officer used the handgun not in his main hand. It was an offhand weapon used in conjunction with his sword.
Yeah.
Okay? And the only time he really used the handgun is it was what's called rank breaks. If you had people who were, you know, running away.
You killed them.
Yeah, you shot them. But if on their charge they broke through the ranks to you as the officer, you deployed your sword, your handgun, you'd pump a cannonball into one guy and chop the other guy, but then you'd throw your handgun on the ground until revolvers came along. But at the end, it was the same way because by the time you deployed that revolver when it was empty, we're not going to stop in the middle of a sword fight and say, let me reload my pistola.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, the reality is we really have to take and look at the context of where we're attempting to apply it. And to me, if you're going to purchase a handgun, you need to train as much as you really possibly can because you have duties and responsibilities when you carry that weapon outside of your home.
Sure.
There are other people's lives that matter. You can't.
Sure, and let's be honest. Let's be honest. Craig, I want to get your answer on the handgun rifle thing.
Uh-huh.
But let's be honest. If you have a handgun in your home, right, that I mean, it is just a more dangerous platform to yourself, to your family, than a rifle is. It just is. I mean, it's really hard to shoot yourself with a rifle. You have to really want to do it. But with a handgun, it's really easy to do. Shoot yourself in the leg or the foot, or one of your family members grab it and not know what they're doing and end up, it wheels easily. So yeah, I agree with you, Eric. If you are going out and you're buying yourself a handgun, you have the responsibility to your fellow American, let alone your family or your loved ones. You have the responsibility to understand how that works and also to secure the damn thing. If your family doesn't know how to use it, you better secure it, because it is something that is, especially if you keep it in home defense condition, which is one in the chamber on safety.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead, Craig.
Oh, I was going to say, and the thing is, the training, the knowledge that we're talking about really is to get a general knowledge. Let's say you're starting at zero. You're really looking at like an evening class and like $100. I mean, it's not that much to understand how to not shoot yourself or people that you don't mean to shoot, how to keep your gun. I mean, a lot of great tips out there. If you go to, unless you live pretty darn rural or something like that, or maybe a state that I'm unaware of. I mean, most places you can go to a training facility. Usually they're nice people. If you're female, don't be intimidated. I actually went to it's a posher range that we have here in Seattle, but still.
For you rich folk.
Yeah, us rich folk. I think it's about 10 or 12 people in the class. Nah, not.
Uh-oh, did we lose Craig?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Oh,
Craig.
Yeah, I got you. Got you now, Craig.
Okay. Yeah. So I was gonna say, yeah, we're not that rich, but so I think it was 10 or 12 people in the class, and half were females, and some of them had never shot before, and they were looking to buy guns, and so the training we're talking about is like 4 to 8 hours. I mean, really, it's an evening or two, and once you've done that, you can go and have never shot a gun before. And they'll give you usually the opportunity to try a revolver, a semi-auto. You get to try different kind of guns and see what you like, and then you can always rent a gun at a range, and then that gives you the ability to rent different guns and see what you like better. And you can always continue training. You can always take that class again. So the training, really, it's fun. It's not intimidating. And I would say, really, if you're unsure, get some friends to go with you. I guarantee if you have never shot, if you need to learn how to be more proficient, I guarantee friends that you know that shoot will go with you most of the time, because you can never go over the basics too much. I learned things last night. So I look at it like, a handgun to me, one of the things I like about it is, when I'm at home, what I have with me, a handgun is great to carry around because I have like my kind of like plushy, fuzzy, comfortable holster that I have, things like that, and things like that for the house.
To go with your smoking jacket when you're sipping on cognac in the library. I understand.
Exactly. So I have it has this big Velcro band that goes around your waist and all. It's actually like a comfort holster. It's kind of like what you'd see in a retirement home or something. So I have that for around the house, and it's good to have your handgun because it's just at the ready. But and also, I have a new puppy now, so I'm taking her out every half an hour, which is bad.
What kind of puppy?
Oh, English Labrador.
Okay.
And she's like 13 weeks now, and so I'm outside on a schedule all the time, which is kind of a bad idea. So I carry my handgun with me when I go out to, me and the dog go pee, So I guess the thing is, and I think about it more living in a city, I guess, or near a city, is that the value of the handgun to me, for one thing, is it is, concealable. Like, I really cannot in, Seattle open carry rifle. It is legal, but I wouldn't do it,
But Craig, I know you. I know you're, at least as far as your history. You were in the military at the same time I was, just about the same time Eric was. I know you that if I asked you honestly, if it hit the fan, what are you grabbing? It ain't going to be your 9mm.
Oh, it'd be my AK and a handgun is what I'd grab.
Yeah.
Because once shit hits the fan and you don't care if somebody sees what you're carrying, well then I have my AK rifle. That's like my favorite. Yeah. And then I have my same handgun. So I always carry the same handgun.
I would take my Remington 700 hunting rifle, beautiful oak stock or walnut stock, only holds 5 rounds. I would take that any day over any 16 capacity 9mm that I have, just because it's more effective. It's going to do the job. Go ahead.
At a distance, and so the thing is, at
Up
a
close
distance,
even.
up close, it's very effective. Yeah. I guess I'm just thinking. So the handgun, you use your handgun to get to your rifle. But
I might pick the handgun over the Mosin.
Yeah, handgun over a Mosin probably.
Yeah.
But
Never.
I knew Eric was going to jump in on that.
So I look at it like one great value of the handgun. Yes, it's a great way to fight to get to your rifle. But most of us, when we're out and about in public, we're going to conceal carry because one thing that is a tactical advantage. I don't want people to know that I have a gun, and I can't hide a rifle. So to me, it's really the concealment. So that's why I would carry a handgun. I mean, they're not as effective as a rifle, but you can't hide a rifle. So to me, that's really what.
And it does have a purpose. It's a backup weapon, and if you are trained on it, if you're thoroughly trained on it, and you have it as a tool that you know how to use, then it has an absolute place, but it is never a primary weapon unless it's all you have. The only thing that comes in front of is a knife, right? So you have a knife, you have your pistol, and then hopefully you have a real battle weapon, which is going to be your AR or your AK. But Eric, let me ask you.
You won't in the field, though. I mean, you won't day to day. That would be after shit hits the fan, most likely.
Absolutely.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. In your car, on your person, it's going to be your handgun. But again, the scenario isn't any different. You're going to use the handgun because it's all you have. It is the best weapon you have on your person at that moment. If your home's being invaded or if your car's being jacked or whatever the case is. But take it to the worst case scenario. An EMP goes off and you're walking home. You have your handgun, but Craig, you have it because you want to get home where you can really take up a real weapon. And let's face it, that is what your AK or your AR is. That is your real go-to weapon. Which brings me to the question, Eric. I'll throw it to you first. So we're talking all this smack about handguns. We're talking about the difficulty of a 22, the general difficulty of a semi-automatic versus a revolver, versus accuracy, versus stopping power, and we're all in agreement that it is a substandard battle weapon. It's not meant for combat. It's meant for personal defense at very close quarters, very up close and personal, and something that you're going to use in order to get to a real combat weapon. So the question is, wouldn't we be better off as people who know guys that know guns, recommending to people, women, guys who have never been into it, wouldn't we be better off recommending on many levels going and buying a decent AR-15? Because you can buy one cheaper than you can most handguns. You can buy one for $500. You have a round capacity that's going to surpass everything except for maybe the FN-57, which holds 20 rounds, or the Kel-Tec 22 Magnum, which holds 30 rounds. You're going to have a capacity of 30 rounds in your AR or your AK. It's super simple to operate. It is highly reliable. Either platform is going to be 10 times more reliable than any handgun, including revolvers. Aren't we doing a disservice to our people that turn to us as people who know guns and say, what should I get for home defense? Well, go buy an AR. Go buy an AK. You're going to learn how to use the thing in 20 minutes. It's going to be far simpler for you to clear jams, to clear misfeeds. It's going to be highly reliable over any handgun choice that you might make. And the good news is it's a far more effective round at stopping somebody. That 5.56 round flying at 3,000 feet a second, or that 7.62 39 round flying at 2,400 feet a second is going to stop somebody far better than even a 357 Magnum, even at close quarter ranges. Now, the downside, of course, is it's going to poke through walls and maybe kill a neighbor. But overall, the advantages of owning a good battle rifle if you have one weapon to choose, do you spend $600 on this SR-22 10-round shot automatic 22 long rifle, or do you spend $500 and buy an AR-15?
Well, at my level and experience, I don't know. Those two weapons are about the same to me. And I'm not in favor.
Let me substitute AR-15 with the AK-47.
The AK-47, hands down, will always be my go-to weapon if
I
I'm
know.
by myself. If I am in a
I know,
unit, though,
comrade. I know.
I'm going to I'm going to a Nugget. I'm going to maybe a really nice hunting rifle because I train in my unit for the long range kill. That is my job. This is what I do. It is what I become proficient at. So within my fire team, that is my job. So if I'm deploying with my fire team, you see, it's all about choices into what you're actually doing. If you're all alone and you're by yourself, but you know Charlie McGrath is 8 miles down the road as the bird flies, and Charlie McGrath has told you, man, you make it here, bring what you got, we'll hunker down, we'll be together. Then it's deploying my AK-47. I'm going to abandon every and all other forms of weaponry to conserve weight so that I can carry as much ammunition and food as possible. And I'm going to make the 8 mile hump with that
So
weapon.
your advice to, Sally Smithers, who's joining your shooting team or your shooting club that you take out once a month, or Craig to his coworkers that he takes out. Your advice to Sally, who's a single mom, no dad, no experience, is go ahead, instead of wasting your money on a 22 autoloader pistol, go ahead and buy an AK-47. You're not going to spend any more time becoming proficient with that than you would the handgun. You're going to actually spend a far less time with an AK. In fact, it's an AK, so you're going to spend like 5 minutes, and you're going to know how to break that thing down, put it back together blindfolded, and at the end of the day, you rack it, it's going to fire. It might not be.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. Is that your
I'll
advice? Is that your advice? Get that gun over cheap.
since you're baiting me, I'll be more accurate. Purchase and deploy either an AR-15 style weapon or AK-47, whichever one you are physically capable of wielding. If you're real small and gingerly and you don't like kick and things of that nature, you'll move more towards the AR-15 style weapon, but you have to understand which each one's advantages and limitations are before you attempt to decide to do something with that weapon that it's not capable of doing. Like if you're transitioning from one vehicle to another and the person is behind a 3.5 foot concrete block wall, and with the possibility it might have steel reinforced rebar, well, that AR-15 isn't going to do nothing but make noise.
No.
Okay?
But in this scenario I'm giving you, I'm just talking home defense. I'm talking
Yeah, in
I'm
home
talking
defense, I'd
Ashley, who
say
went out and spent
she'd be
who went out
better
and
off
spent,
with AR-15. She'd be
right,
way
exactly.
better off with AR-15 than a handgun and worrying about feed issues. And there's going to be some, but the AR, it happens on the higher realm. It happens so rarely.
Right.
You have to either muck the gun up,
But why don't
stuff
we
it in
do that?
dirt.
I mean, what
I
Craig,
do. You guys have been doing this whole pistol thing for weeks, and that's the reason why I wanted to get on here. Because to
yeah,
me, to heck with the pistol. The
well, let me
pistol
ask
is
Craig. Let me
useless.
ask Craig. Because I'm guilty of it too. I never counseled Ashley in, she was talking handgun from the get go, and I stuck in that realm. Which, well, what you should do is go buy a Ruger LCR, hammerless LCR into 38. That's what you should buy. 5 rounds, 38 plus P. It's not going to break your hand, and guess what? It's going to stop a person. But the reality of it is, for the same exact amount of money, I could have counseled her at buying something that is really a truly proficient weapon, which is, either a Century Arms AK-47 in 7.62 by 39, or maybe a DPMS AR-15 in 5.56. And yeah, it's bigger. You're not going to conceal it, but if it's going to be your home defense, lay by the bed weapon, it's a far better choice. It's a far better choice in every aspect. It's more intimidating when you point it at somebody, and it's more lethal when you pull the trigger, and it's more likely to go bang, and it's more likely to rechamber another round. Craig, you take people shooting, and both of you guys I commend for this, because you're taking people out shooting that need the practice and experience, and it's more than I could say. I don't do that. I shoot with people that already know how to shoot. But Craig, have you ever been in that situation? We talk handguns a lot. You and I talk handguns a lot. What we like, what we don't like. Have you ever said to anybody, you know what? The M&P Shield is a great gun. It's a great gun, but for the same exact amount of money, you can buy yourself a DPMS AR-15 and have 30 rounds, a reliable, great stopping power, great range, intimidation factor, and will fit any niche you want to plug into it. Have you ever done that?
I usually work with a person and find out what they like. Most everybody has some kind of a preference for whatever reason. Like I've known some people who they only trap shoot and that's it. It's like their sport, and maybe they go duck hunting too. So their home defense weapon is a shotgun because it's what they're used to, and that's
Sure.
and they can actually use it. So maybe they go trap shooting, with a over under, and they go duck hunting with a Benelli or something like that, pump shotgun. So maybe they get a kind of a tactical shotgun that has a nice long tube on it and a bunch of shells in it, and because they know that that's something they have a comfort level with and they could use it. Sometimes people have a preference; they just want a handgun or they want a rifle or maybe they want both.
My experience is that's great advice. You're meeting people where they're at. If they're into,
Yeah, because some people like they want an AR or they want a handgun. So I tend to follow like their path. What would they like? I would say that um, I think what I also tell people always is what's most important is you got to get out there and shoot. Because I tell them if you go to a class, if you do any kind of training, you're going to find out what you like and why.
yeah,
Really. And that's what it comes down to. So I know some people, they just don't want to, but they have to get out there and shoot. And then the thing is, they'll know what they want at that point. They'll know that I like handguns, but I have no interest in an AR. It doesn't move me. Some people will like the AR. Like intro to there's like classes they usually call like intro to your carbine, intro to your AR, like AR basics or something like that.
sure.
It's usually only 125 bucks, maybe 150 if it's expensive where you're at. But maybe you can get your hand on a friend's or something like that. And you could go in blind and you could go for an evening training and you would say, I feel confident I could defend myself with this, or maybe you hate it. So really, I think people like we can recommend like myself. If people really ask me what should they get, I'll say get a Glock like everybody else. Keep it in a holster. Watch that trigger. There's no safeties on those. I would say get an AR-15. Get a short-barreled AR. They're really really common. They're not very expensive. You can go the AK route too. Most Americans tend to be a little bit more familiar with the AR platform, so I kind of recommend that. And then I don't tend to recommend the shotgun so much, but some people have a history with shotguns. Maybe it's all they've ever shot. They have a familiarity. That's what interests them, and I say go for it. So I mean really. Go to the range, rent some guns, rent some different handguns. If you can rent rifles, shoot them. I mean, really, I think it comes down to just spending time with people and helping them figure
Yeah,
out
I think
what they like.
I think that's great advice. And in fact,
But it's like a damn puppy. It's a hell of an investment in time, but it pays off.
well, my friend again, Ashley's getting under the bus tonight, but thinking about it all over again from the get-go. And listening to you and Eric talk, I think we're in agreement that a battle rifle, is absolutely a superior weapon to any handgun. Maybe the right choice for me, for her, would have been, hey, you know what? Why don't we take an afternoon and we'll go out and you'll shoot my AK, you'll shoot my AR, you'll shoot my 870 Remington. You'll shoot my 9mm. You'll shoot my 22 auto. You'll shoot, bring 10 guns for her to shoot, and say now, shoot them all. Tell me what you feel, what you think, and I think most people in general, men, women, it doesn't really matter if they're not really experienced with the guns, they're going to find a rifle a lot more pleasant to shoot than they are any handgun. Handguns are hard to control. They're with no practice, they're hard to control. The bigger calibers tend to hurt more when you pull the trigger. And even Eric Lovely's venerated 7.62 39 round is very, very mild compared to pulling the trigger on a 357. And you get into an AR, you pull the trigger on a 5.56, and you barely know anything happens. So maybe the answer is, when we're asked that question, is, hey, you know what? This is what I would do. I would have A next to my bed at night. But rather, if you really care about this person, you might say, hey, why don't we go out and I've got them all. Let's go shoot them and see what you like and see what feels right. The truth of the matter is, I don't think a handgun is any more proficient in the home as far as, as taking corners or clearing rooms. I don't think it's any more proficient than my AR-15 with the 16-inch barrel. Especially if you get into some bullpup designs and things like that, it's probably more proficient. But anyway, the point is, I think you're right. People get concepts into their head, and non-gun owners look at guns on a table and they don't know anything. They just know what one looks cool, what one looks badass, what one looks like it's going to be the most scary. And inevitably, they're going to pick a semi-automatic with kind of cool Picatinny rail on the bottom and cool checkering on it. And when the reality is, it's probably the worst choice they can make, only because, not because it's a bad weapon. It's a great weapon. All my guns are automatic. I have one revolver and I have 7 or 8, auto loaders. The bad choice is because they don't have the same experience that Craig or Eric or myself have with a problem, with something going wrong with it. And just to be full disclosure, I have 2 AK-47s, one chambered in 7.62 by 39, one chambered in 5.56. Extremely reliable. Love them. Love to shoot them. They're a blast to shoot. My primary weapon, if it all hit the fan, would be my AR-15. Why? Because I've shot tens of thousands, if not more, rounds out of them. I love direct gas impingement. I love the weight of the gun. I feel that there's nothing that could go wrong with that gun that I could not handle. Now, that doesn't mean I couldn't handle a problem with the AK-47, but our government didn't spend a bunch of money to train me on it, and I like my AR. What lays next to my bed at night, every night when I go to sleep? None of them. I don't have a pistol. I don't have an AR or an AK. I have my tactical 870 with a 6-round tube under it, loaded with double-aught buck. Why? Because it's going to kill anybody instantaneously. It is the ultimate stopping power. It's far better than an AR. It's far better than an AK. It's better than a MP5 fully automatic. One shot with a double-aught buck is going to stop the conversation. It's simple to use. So that is my primary home defense weapon. Not only that, I don't have to worry about killing a neighbor with it. So it's just what I prefer. It's what I train with, close range. I like it. I think it's the most effective gun that you could possibly deploy in a life or death home invasion type situation. But that doesn't mean it's the best for you or for Eric or for anybody else. I guess the key is getting our friends, getting our loved ones to a place where they can fire what we already have. I mean, that is probably the best thing that we could do for people that we care about. Find out what they're comfortable with. And maybe it is a 22 revolver. Maybe that's all they can handle. Maybe that's, what they pick up and they love. And if it's fun for them to shoot, guess what? They're going to keep shooting it and become proficient at it and be more useful to themselves and potentially us. If it hit the fan and we're relying on this person, I'd much rather have my 105-pound sister that can shoot proficiently a 22 revolver with 9 shots than I would having her shoot a 40 caliber or a 45 or 357 that she's going to get one crappy shot off with and be too terrified to pull the trigger again. So, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the advice is get these people out, get them comfortable on something, and make that their primary weapon. Eric?
I would agree. With grown-ups, with children, it's a little different story. You're going to want to approach it by giving them exactly what you believe is the end result, world without rule of law weapon, field combat weapon, whatever you want to call it. Like, and most people don't realize my daughter, she's grown now. She's in her 20s and whatnot.
College girl.
Yeah, but when she was younger, the very first weapon she learned how to shoot, she learned how to change magazines, the whole 9 yards, was an AK-47.
Really?
Okay. She's 5 foot nothing. She might, I think she's 5 foot even, maybe 5'1". She's 93 pounds, and I took her out in the field. I put an AK-47 full wooden heavyweight stock, the entire 9 yards right in her hand, and in 10 minutes she was firing the weapon. I wouldn't say she was ready to go out and start fighting a war or anything of that nature, but she was firing the weapon. She was coming close to hitting the target. She was starting to understand about magazine exchange and actually, getting to the point where she was starting to say, well, let's start learning about aiming so I can hit something. She had already overcome everything that the AK had to throw at her in that aspect, and she was ready to actually shoot at something.
Which I think speaks to the tame nature of the round. I mean, it is a very gentle round, especially in your 8-pound AK-47. It has a little bit of recoil to it, but no more than a .223 in a bolt action gun, or no more than a .243. I mean, it's a very, very gentle round.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't even realize it at the time, but within within 30 minutes, she was hitting the target from what's called rice paddy prone. Is anybody familiar with that?
Yeah.
And so at 93 pounds with an AK. And as soon as we were done playing with that, the very next thing I put into her hands was a Springfield XD double stack magazine, 45 ACP, 13 rounds, and she, could hit the target with that. So, I mean, the whole idea of someone telling me that they can't do it, if my 93-pound daughter, whose hand is not even as big as half of my fist, can fire these weapons in a single day and start to grasp what's going on and start having a greater understanding than anybody can. There is no reason to be afraid or timid. You have to learn what your limitations are if you have them, and then you work with them. But you don't shy away. You get in there and you pick up some different weapons. I'm even surprised it isn't the first step you took with her, Charlie, was to gather up a bunch of weapons and ammunition, take her out in the field and say, here you go nuts. Shoot
Yeah,
that,
that's what I should have done. That's exactly what I should have done.
And then ask her, what do you like?
Yeah, she asked me my advice on handguns and then did exactly what I told her not to do, which is stay away from a rimfire. But it is what I should have done, because I know that Ashley isn't going to go out and spend the kind of time that is required to become proficient with that weapon. I know that. So, in reality, the best choice for her probably is to become proficient, spend an hour, become proficient with the Remington 870, because it's your home defender. If not, then go to an AR or AK, but stay away from a handgun because it's the most difficult thing to shoot accurately or to have any kind of an issue with. As far as training the young, I went a little different route, Eric. And Craig, I want to know if you've trained anybody, your significant other, on somebody who wasn't into guns, and you helped them along and how you did it. I trained my son the exact same way that I was trained on guns, and it had nothing to do with the government, it had nothing to do with the military, it had nothing to do with combat. It had everything to do with, I live in Montana, and it's a very much a gun culture, and there's a lot of hunting, a lot of shooting sports here. So the first gun he had at 6 years old was the old Red Ryder BB gun, where he could become proficient at hitting paper targets at 20 feet. Then we went to a 22 and a 410 shotgun. Then we went up from there to, I think it was a 30-30 lever action was the first high powered rifle he shot. But again, this wasn't going to the range once a year. This was weekends. Every weekend we're going out shooting something. The first real rifle he ever owned was a Ruger 1020. I love Rugers, if you can't tell. Ruger 1022 that he became very proficient at. And then his first battle rifle, assault rifle, if you will, was an AK-47, an M+M 10 AK-47 in 7.6239, because he's got the weird Eric Lovely gene, and that was the gun he fell in love with. And before he would go out and shoot it, this was several years ago, but Eric and others had talked me into the battle worthiness of an AK-47, and my experience with them was picking them up in the desert in Iraq and Kuwait and effing around with them, shooting them off into the desert. That's the only AKs I ever owned.
That's where you messed up. You're supposed to put your M16 in the back of the truck and use the AK instead.
Yeah, I didn't. I shot them up, and we did try to smuggle a couple of them home, but we came up with the threat of, if this is found in your vehicle, you will spend another year in the desert, period. And we decided, F this, it isn't worth it. I want to get the hell out of here. So we buried a bunch of crap in the sand, including some nice Raw pistols, night vision gear, and AK-47s. But anyway, the point is, my experience with AK was very, very limited. He liked them a lot for whatever reason, video games and seeing them online. So when he wanted a battle rifle and wanted an AK, that's what I got him. And it was a learning curve for me because I've never field stripped one or taken it down to, break it down and clean it. And so it was kind of fun because we both did that together, and we were both proficient at tearing it apart and taking it down, which, by the way, Eric and Craig, as you both know, that is a literal 5-minute process to learn how to become proficient at that. And I fell in love with the simplicity of the gun, no doubt about it. But he was proficient at it before we would go out and shoot it, and now he's proficient at every aspect of the AK-47, including magazine changes, including clearing malfunctions, including field stripping it, and he's very, very much would be reliable. Now, is that the wrong way to go? Starting him on a BB gun and ending at a battle rifle, rather than just throwing a battle rifle in his hand when he was 7 years old, because you know what, a 7-year-old boy could shoot a AK-47. It happens every day in sub-Sahara Africa. But I preferred to go the more traditional, we're going to start small and go big route, and it worked out well because he never had a fear of guns. I never put anything in his hands that I thought was going to hurt him when he pulled the trigger. So, and I think that's a big deal, Craig.
What's that exactly? Yeah.
Well, I'm rambling on. You're probably taking a nap, but
No,
I think to my mind, it's a big deal. If I'm in a situation where I want to train somebody, they have no interest whatsoever in guns, they hate guns, in fact, then I like Eric's approach, which is, okay, I love you, and you're going to do this for me, and you have no choice. You're going to go out with me. You and I are going to spend a day or 2 days. You're going to become proficient with this weapon, and that weapon is going to be an AR-15 or an AK-47, because if it all hits the fan, or if you're off in college or something happens, I want you to be able to look at this platform and say, I know what to do. I think it has a place. They might hate the gun, they might hate their experience, but they know what they're doing with it. My perspective was, I want him to love guns, and I want him to never be, until he's a man, or man size anyway, like he is now. I don't ever want him to pull the trigger and be hurt and be afraid of the thing. So I started small and worked my way up to big. And he's truly the only person I've ever trained that had no experience whatsoever, had some interest in it, but it was completely up to me on how that outcome turned out. Is it going to be something that, I'm going to put it, my dad, I remember once my dad, when I was about 10 years old, gave me his Mossberg 12 gauge because we were all out shooting, and to pull the trigger on it. And it hurt. And I remember it to this day. Up to that point, I think I'd shot a 410 and some 22s, and I had no idea that, a 12 gauge was going to kick so hard. And, when I'm sitting there at 70 pounds and getting knocked on my butt, it was not a pleasurable, memorable experience. So,
Oh, for sure, yeah. I would say that everybody likes shooting, even if they don't like guns, or if they're, no matter who they are, when somebody gets out in the field, they enjoy it. I mean, I've never met somebody who didn't. So if you can go out to a nice range, or if you can go out to public land, or if you have a massive amount of private land, yeah, and you can shoot them out, and you can start them out with like a bolt action 22 rifle, or a 10-22, or a 22 revolver, or all of those. The next thing they're going to want to do is feel the recoil of something larger. They're going to say, oh well, let me try that 9mm. Or then like I was surprised last night. I took a bunch of new shooters to the range and went to the class, and all of them, like, some of them started with the 22 because they weren't sure and they were like nervous, and some of them started with a 9mm, but all of them wanted to shoot the 9mm and the 45. They all wanted to shoot the biggest gun to see what it was like, and they were interested, and they wanted to shoot more when we left. So I would say that even if a person, like, I would just say maybe a weird way to put it, but let guns speak to them, I guess is how I'd put it. They'll get into it. I mean, I think Charlie dropped. Oh, Charlie's back. But yeah, I mean, let guns do their magic on them. It's fun. Really, it's fun. I mean, I was with some people last night, and some of them were really nervous and unsure, but once they shot a time or two, they wanted to try their calibers, they wanted to try other things. We all left, and they all want to go back to the range. They want to go back and shoot more. Now that they know what they're doing, they want to shoot more.
And I agree. I mean, I haven't ever met anyone who's physically put their hands on the weapon and fired it a few times who really didn't enjoy it. And I just stress, though, because the weapon is such a serious thing, that this reason why, I mean, like now, we're moving into looking at where we're taking 15 acres and we're going to carve it up into an actual combat deployment training zone where you will have, targets. We'll start working where concealment, what is concealment versus cover, how cover is effective, how to use cover, how to move and shoot in cover and concealment. We're moving more into the fire team training and leaving behind, unfortunately, we're leaving behind the kind of idea of training new people because you have to specialize with what your time is. We really have the wooded area, mountain terrain to train in different seasons, both winter, heat of summer, things of that nature. So, but yeah, I would agree that if you're looking at the new shooter, or if you're a new shooter by yourself and you have nobody, let's say you have no Craig, there's no Craig in your life. You're just wandering around and you've been watching the media and the news and you've come to the opinion that, hey, you need to do something with your time and your energy and your wealth. Go down to the gun stores, find one, like Craig said, that rents the gun to you and just buy 50 rounds and go fire this gun. Buy 20, 50 rounds and go fire that gun. Buy some ammunition or however they do it at that particular establishment and just try shooting. You'll find instantly that you enjoy it. You just may want to try something that you think you'll enjoy a little more, something that looks more like you, or, that gun's really pretty heavy. I couldn't imagine holding it up in a gunfight trying to shoot 50 rounds out of it. It's something of that nature. Definitely, those choices are what you should encounter, and you should take the time to expose yourself to them. But I am of the severe thinking that people really need to do that in rapid succession, and then they need to advance their training. And it isn't just like you should do training on acquiring targets and target analysis. Your weapon itself, no matter what you choose to use in the field, no matter what situation, one of the most important things is in the absolute nearest to the blink of an eye you can target assessment, assessing what is dangerous, assessing what needs to be dealt with right away, and the more you train, you will realize when you drift into these combat situations that you aren't panicked. You are thinking about these. Where are my targets? Where are the shots coming from? Where is my cover? Where is my concealment? Where can I approach from? Where can I degress from to get away from the situation? All of these things start coming into play so that once you understand that you take a weapon outside of your home, if you're inside of your home and you're willing to risk your husband's life, your wife's life, your kid's life, your neighbor's life on the idea that you don't want to train, well, that's up to you. You take it out into the world, and that's a huge responsibility. And you need to understand that if you come up out of cover, and even though you have the shot, but you realize, like me, you're carrying a 45, he is less than 30 feet away, there are people behind him, you're running FMJs out of your 45, well, guess what? You're going to shoot those people behind him. So you need to either transition to a new position to engage the target where the cover is going to be there, or you be like me where you run multiple magazines of varying ammunition and you trade out your FMJs in transition, moving to another position, and load your hollow points. These are all training things that need to be applied because a weapon is a dangerous thing, whether it's a subpar weapon like a handgun, and I understand where it applies. Yeah, I understand where it applies. You want to go to the supermarket and you don't want to look like Rambo Jane. You don't want to look like Rambo Joe. You don't want to panic the pacifists. So you wear your handgun from the vehicle into the store and your field weapon is locked and stowed, ready to go in your vehicle. Once again, your handgun is now a transition weapon, getting me from the store to my vehicle.
Which is one thing I love about ex-military guys, Craig and Eric, both ex-military, myself ex-military, is almost, not everyone I've ever spoke to, but almost to a man or woman, ex-military has the notion, it's always the notion to not pull the trigger first. And the week. Oh my God, I know so many of the weekend warriors, right, that belong to the militia, but they've never actually, been in combat or in the military, or understand what the hell it means to point a weapon at somebody. Even Craig, you can speak to this when we talked about Ferguson and these cops pointing weapons at people. Um, Typically, most people that have been in a combat situation, their number one thought is how not to pull the trigger, right? How to get out of the situation unscathed without being killed, and secondarily without having to kill somebody else. Now, of course, naturally, there's situations where you're defending assets or loved ones where that can't be your first priority. But in most cases, right? In most cases that you run into, be it you're out hunting, or it's what hits a fan and you're out procuring supplies or whatever, you're going to look for the situation that ends with you not being killed, or or you having to pull the trigger on somebody else, because it never just ends with that, right? You never pull that trigger and that's the end of the story. You go home and go to bed. Even if it's one assailant, you drop him dead in his tracks, you're going to get to live with that for the rest of eternity. And you're going to ask yourself for the rest of eternity, could I have handled that differently? Could I have concealed myself better, just lay down in the brush and let this threat walk by? Did I need to pull the trigger and take a human life? So it's one thing I do appreciate about former military is normally the ones that have been in combat, and I don't mean pulled the trigger on somebody, but I mean have seen the results of what happens when it goes bad really fast and really violently, and you've seen the bodies and you've seen dead people and you've seen how permanent that is. One thing I've always appreciated about the people who have seen that is they are the first to want to avoid getting into that situation. Craig, you had spoke to me once about how the cops in Ferguson were acting and how it was just appalling to you. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Oh well, yeah, I'd say that when we were watching the Ferguson issues unfolding, yeah, to me it was very disturbing to see the police with oftentimes crew-served weapons aimed at crowds of people. And I look at that, and I know their situation is unique, etc. But watching the muzzle control of their A4s and crew-served weapons aimed at the crowd, and even I'd say like the A4s, the AR-15s, whatever, aimed at the crowd. To me, that's like, something I would suggest people to do if you're going to carry a gun, or even if you're not, you're good with a knife, or you're going to have a gun in the home. A very good thing to do is a lot of self-defense courses, a lot of like intermediate handgun courses. You can find this. Do teach self-defense law, oftentimes deadly force law, tailored to your state usually. So I've actually taken deadly force law course here in Washington, and I actually I could I have a certificate to be a security guard if I wanted to, which I don't. But
Craig, the rent-a-cop? I want to
rent-a-cop. Yeah, I don't want to do it. But the thing about it is, like people do not always know. It's like the weekend warriors. They don't always realize. I would say something very important to do is have that deadly force law and know how it's tailored to your state and what you can do and what you can't do, because I find that knowing the law helps to tone down the Rambos out there. People don't always realize that drawing a gun, if you unholster it and aim it at somebody, like in the state of Washington here, that's assault. Okay,
Sure.
you can't do that. You can, if your life is in danger or someone else's life is in danger, or the person is fleeing a felony, and that's a whole, that would take too long to describe. It's legal terms. It's legalese basically. You can shoot them. So a civilian can draw a gun and shoot somebody, but you cannot brandish. That's assault. Now, if a situation arises and you do realize that you could have legal problems having done that. So I find that a lot of like the weekend warriors, I'm in the state militia, that type, which is cool if you're in the state militia, but a lot of you guys are kind of rednecky and you know it. But all the same, like learn deadly force law, and I think that anybody who is a little too Rambo-y, they will start learning. It will change their tone. I think people who are a little too Rambo-y, oftentimes they just haven't thought about it.
That's right.
They're not attached to
Or they haven't
reality.
seen it, or they haven't seen the carnage, right?
Yeah, or they haven't seen it. And I would just say that even if a person feels they may not care about killing another person, and to me, if you had it coming, I really don't care. But what I do care about is innocent people being injured or killed, and I care about myself going to jail for killing
Right.
somebody who had it coming.
Let me
So
tell you what.
really, it's good to have that training. Oh yeah, and about Ferguson, I would just say that yeah, I mean. Cops can aim a gun at somebody. They can brandish. It's illegal for them to do that in most places. But still, that many guns aimed at that crowd. I mean, that is that is a recipe for a disaster.
What I
mean,
thought interesting about it was when
yeah.
when you were talking about this to me several, during Ferguson, this was, a year ago. First of all, let me say this: why I love having you both on both on here at the same time. And this is half Craig's project, the Guns of Politics, but so it's Craig and I all the time. But why I like having both of you two and me talking to both of you two is because I get to see. I'm in the middle between both of you, and the perspectives is, Craig is very, very, very active in Second Amendment. He goes and he gives talks to groups of potential voters on the importance of the Second Amendment, what the Second Amendment's all about. He's very much involved in the current community, and therefore he takes classes on gun laws, like like he was just speaking to, on when it's okay to pull your weapon and what are the ramifications if you drop somebody in your house. What's going to happen to you. That's one aspect of it. Craig's dealing with the world as it is, and Eric, I love Eric because he's dealing with the world as it may very well be, which is all that crap's out the window. And I'm going to secure my food and my family, and this is what I'm going to do it. Now, that doesn't mean, Eric's looking for the apocalypse or he's going to be reckless. I honestly believe that if I broke into Eric's house, he didn't know me, and I broke into his house and I was stealing his food, I don't think he would shoot me. I think because of his training and because of his experience, he would be confident enough behind his weapon of choice, pointing it at me, saying, "Get the hell out of my house," that I don't think I would be shot. But if for 1 second I was a threat to him or his family, if he perceived me as a threat, I was going to die right there in front of him. But so that doesn't mean, because he's thinking of the world as it could be, that he's a gung-ho killer. But talking to both of you, getting both perspectives, because Eric, has already said he'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. That's a great point, and so is Craig's. If somebody's stealing your flat screen TV, and
Let him have it.
let him have the damn thing. Yeah, let him have it. And not eat both barrels. That's let him have the damn TV, because it ain't worth it.
If you renter's insurance for what is it, $18 a month,
whatever,
you get a new flat screen TV.
Yeah, who cares? There's nothing in your home. There's nothing in your home short of loved ones that you can't replace, and there's nothing that I would kill somebody over. Now, if they were
my gold and my silver, he's probably shot, brother. I don't know.
It could be a 1989 hipster jacket that I might have but if it's between me and my son, if he's closer to my son than he is to me or to that jacket, he's got a problem coming, and that's it. That's the only thing. And Craig, I'm sure you feel the same way. It's your loved one or your new puppy, that guy's in trouble. But if it's anything else, he's probably going to get out of there with it, or he's give him the opportunity to get out of there.
Yeah, and if you study self-defense law, then if you study deadly force law and know how the particulars of your state, all these questions are really easy to answer. Like you'll know what you can and cannot do. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, like the thing is, there's no reason that you should ever go to jail, if you know the law, unless you're kind of an idiot. And so,
what do you think about common sense, though?
Well,
and I mean, isn't it? And comment on this, and then Eric, I want you to comment on it too. But if you have training with your weapon, you're confident with it, then that diffuses the situation a lot. You're not shitting your pants because somebody's in your house. You know that you have the ability to end that situation at any second that you want to. So let's take that out of it. You've spent the time training with whatever your weapon is. But so then it comes to deadly force. Isn't it mostly common sense?
It depends. It depends, because the thing is that, like, it depends on what state you're in. Like here in Washington, it's mostly common sense, and if you know deadly force law here, if you have if you basically know what you need to know, you're gonna be good to go. But then if you get into a state like New York, then you're in a whole different situation, because some states have castle doctrine, some have stand your ground. The problem is, and that's awesome, but what you run into is, like, if you go to New York, it's duty to retreat. You cannot defend yourself,
Wow.
literally. I mean, so if someone comes into your home and you shoot them, and you could have retreated, and it doesn't matter if it's a window 3 stories off the ground, they'll throw you in jail. So I
Wow.
would say that you may not want to live in some states.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what
a
I
great
mean?
point.
So
Well,
it's like common sense, yes. When you're in states that are part of America, yes. When you're in states that are not, no, common sense won't help.
I mean, Charlie, you say wow, but literally in not just the state of New York, in the city of New York, you're sitting in your third floor apartment, right? You got the windows open, you got your fire escape right there. Me, I kick in your front door, and in a moment's notice, you see I got a pump shotgun, and the shotgun is coming up to be pointed at you. You realize, as you're on the move, that I'm going to start pulling the trigger, and you know you're not going to make it to that fire escape. You still will go to jail if you turn and shoot me.
I guess I would.
Because there's the possibility you could have gotten away, therefore that is what you should have
Well,
done
and
by
if you're
default.
listening, to this program in New York, I guess you got to ask yourself the question. First of all, if you're trained, your instinct is you're going to be to kill them. That's your instinct. You're going to kill them because you're going to preserve your own life above anything else. You're going to try to preserve your life. So in that situation, do you preserve your life and then spend whatever time you're spending in Rutgers? Or is that it? No. What's the prison out there? Yeah. Are you going to spend your time in prison, or are you going to just be dead? And in that case, I guess, like Eric said, you'll take your chances with 12.
Throw yourself on the mercy of the court.
Yeah.
I mean,
That,
I'd rather be throwing myself on the mercy of the court than, having all my loved ones putting me in a hole. So to me though, the difference between Craig and I, and it's not to upset in any way. I deal with the Second Amendment as it was written, intended, and codified in law. I do not deal with the privileges. However, I was intelligent enough to go to a state where here it's called the Make My Day law. So I'm fairly covered. The Second Amendment still, like, I'm not allowed a rocket launcher, I can't own a tank, but the Second Amendment says you can. When you realize what the Second Amendment truly means, it is so that society itself, the civilian, can leave their house and be prepared to wage war, not defend themselves from an intruder. So the real Second Amendment means I can have a grenade launcher,
I don't.
RPG.
I don't think you and Eric. I don't think you and Craig have one hair's difference on the Second Amendment.
Yeah,
I
but
believe you both
but
think
he
it's the same thing.
applies more. He applies more of the actual law. I looked at a way to just simply avoid it. If you live in one of those places, get out. In Colorado, the Make My Day law, which also is compounded by my home on the move. That means your vehicle, 100% of the time, is viewed as a part of your own house. So the Make My Day law applies from your vehicle as well. If anyone enters your house, even if the door is unlocked in Colorado, uninvited, you can shoot them, and that's the end of the story. The sheriff and
I
the
don't think
people.
it's any different than in. I don't think it's any different in Washington. I really don't, except for King County, Craig.
Craig's the
Oh,
expert.
well, actually, in Washington, we used to have castle doctrine. Now it's stand your ground. They changed it. So as long as you are uh, uh, lawfully where you can lawfully be, you can defend yourself. There's no duty to retreat, although it is slightly implied. I mean, if you could have uh, exited the situation, then that's just basically kind of common sense. It is implied. So you can defend yourself in your home, or outside of your home. There are some particulars, like I would always say, be sure and lock your doors, because if somebody walks in your house and the door wasn't locked, even though you did not invite them, now you get into some tricky legal grounds right there. So
Really? Well,
yeah, so
in Montana, I think it's a lot like Colorado, probably more like Texas, which is You're going
There's
to
a
the homeowner is
Shoot him in the yard and carry him back in the house.
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's a great site. And I need to post it in the show notes. There's a great site, and I just forget off the top of my head, but it's I forget what it's called, but it actually is an organization you can join, and all the info's up there free. But it goes over the intricacies of gun laws in every state, kind of like by bullet point, basically. So I'll put that up. I forget what it is off the top of my head. I have to look it up. But the info is out there, and it's good to know the particulars of your state because it can keep you out of trouble.
Yes, that is definitely true. Although I will say another vote, another thing that you guys have talked often about. I am 100% handgun. If you were going to carry a handgun into society or any type of weapon, I am 100% firm believer in open carry. Open carry deters most idiots. It deters most situational criminals. If you are open carrying and they see it and someone still engages you, that tells you a lot more that you need to know about the individual. Most wannabe criminals, hoods, thugs, whatever, they're really just bullies. That's what it really boils down to. They're just a bully that's willing to take it much further. So they will be deterred simply by knowing that you're armed and they can see it. A lot of people want to argue against that. I have the advantage of concealment. Well, you know what? Just like Charlie said, I don't want to be in a tussle with some egghead who would have never messed with me if he would have seen my weapon.
Yeah.
And now I have to kill his ass, and I have to add that face to the rest of them and move along with the rest of my life.
Well, and think about it.
That's not what I'm going to do.
And to your point, Eric, if Craig is walking through, wherever, Seattle or I don't know if you can open carry there. I think you can, but you're walking. You can. Okay, so you're open carrying through downtown Seattle, and it kind of qualifies a potential assailant. If somebody's going to jack with you and you're carrying your 357 on your side, that speaks volumes to that individual and his intent, in my opinion. Because somebody in their right mind isn't gonna look at somebody carrying a weapon and think prime target or somebody I want to start an altercation with. Eric's right. It is a deterrent just by the fact that it's on your hip. I'm not a proponent of brandishing. I think that's a very dangerous practice. But I think that if you're carrying it responsibly, it speaks volumes. It's a billboard sitting there saying you're going to die. Because I'm not going to punch you. I'm going to shoot you. So
there's a counterbalance to it, Charlie, and you have to people who choose to do these things. You have to understand that this is where my talk of duty and honor and dignity and things come into play. Because those who don't think on that level around you in society, when things start to go wrong, believe it or not, they will flock to you. They will see the weapon. They will see you as a common individual that is not amongst the threat party, and they will move towards you, whether you believe it or not. In that situation, it will happen. And you have to understand that simply by making that statement in your own hometown, shopkeepers that know you in the places that you frequent, well, guess what? They're looking to you to step in and fill the void and be the just cause. They see you toting it around. It is not something to take lightly. It is a serious responsibility to you, your loved ones, the people that you patron, the people in your hometown, and you can't. One, you have to realize that you need to be this more of that training. You need to be mentally prepared for that.
No, I agree with that. And my respect to both of you, because you both take it further than I do, which is you actively seek out people and train them, or at least lead them to training on a regular basis. And that's the kind of activity that if it happened, if it hit the fan in this country and it's in Seattle or Colorado, you two are both going to have people coming to you because of what the leadership you've already shown, at least as far as firearms go. So I think at the end of the day, the conversation started out with what's the best defense gun, handgun, blah, 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 go down the line. At the end of the day, the best defensive weapon is people like Eric and Craig, who are taking people out of the workplace and out of their daily lives, acquaintances, and they're investing the time into them, at least if nothing else, to lead them to a course where they can become better prepared. And that, at the end of the day, is the best thing you could possibly do. I can know everything there is to know about combat weaponry. And you know what? When I try to explain it to the coffee girl, Ashley, it just falls on deaf ears because she can't absorb the knowledge that it's taken me decades and a whole lifetime to acquire. However, if I would have done what Eric or Craig have done in the past, which is take these people and say, look, this is the best thing you can do. We're going to go to this course. We're going to go out and shoot all the guns that I have. We're going to, spend some time together, and you're going to decide what is the best weapon for you, and become proficient at it because it is something you're comfortable with, because I took the time to lead you to that training or take you out and let you go through different weapons. That is that is probably going to go further in saving lives than a whole lifetime of knowledge and giving advice. Because the advice I give to somebody who's never picked up a gun is meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless because they have no point of reference. They can believe me, but it doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do them any good to go out and do what I say. It does them it does them actual real good, and will potentially save their lives to take the route that you guys are, which is leading them to training or training them yourselves to be proficient. So hats off to you guys. We're 2 hours into this thing. Do we want to call it?
Yeah, I gotta run. I would also say a good topic for next time is like the when it comes to like what's the best defense. Something I've done, and I think it's very important, is organize your block, organize your street. Like if anybody comes down, like here in Seattle, if the bans of like if shit hits the fan, if the law is not really working, if a car full of thugs or a couple cars full of thugs comes down my street, I got my neighbors coordinated, and we have our areas of fire. We
roll
we
the
know what we're
block
gonna
of
do.
Swiss cheese.
We know what we're gonna do. It's something to think about. If you live in the right place, everybody on your block, everybody in your neighborhood, that you get into the right mindset. Sometimes your best weapon really is defense, and it's a coordinated block or a coordinated neighborhood. You're not making it down my street, thugs. I hope you try.
Eric, lovely final thoughts. Great advice, Craig.
Oh, definitely training. Use your weapons. Don't be afraid of them. Do some training, and understand that when I say training, go beyond just firing the weapon. Take time in different points of your day, your week. Stop. Look at where you are. Look at everything that's available to you. Think about, well, what is cover here? What if there was a gentleman shooter there that came out of Walmart and there was another one covering the parking lot over here and I was positioned where I am? What would I do? Where is my cover? Where is my concealment? Which one offers me the best opportunity at survival? Which one offers me the best opportunity at shots on target if need be? Think about these things. Just take a moment, if you're a smoker, if you're drinking a cup of coffee, just stand around and think about those things and train in more than just firing your weapon. Train definitely in target acquisition, target analysis. Those two things are some of the keys, and you also have to start thinking about engagement parameters. Some people want to call it rules of engagement. Like if the person comes out of Walmart and there's a big crowd of people behind them, probably not the wisest to engage them in that situation. You're going to harm more than you're going to benefit. And these things are, when you carry a weapon in society, these are things even inside your home. If I have X weapon, like Charlie said, if I have an AK-47, well, guess what? I hear you coming down the hallway. If I don't care about anybody's life, like the person in the next room, I can shoot clean through the wall, a full magazine, and kill you and everybody else in the hallway, and it isn't going to matter. I'll probably kill the neighbors, my kids in the next room, and so forth too. But I mean, that's what you need to think about. Can I deploy my weapon in this situation? Have I walked through my home, and do I literally know where everybody is when I went to bed? Where
Yep.
are my assets? Where are my key ingredient things that I love that I can't live without?
I like it. So we got Craig's advice is get to know your neighborhood, strength in numbers. I think that's absolutely outstanding advice. And Eric's advice, of use your freaking head, know what your situation is before you're put into it. I agree with both of them. I think they're both invaluable. I guess you guys covered two really key things. I would say that your primary weapon, be it whatever you are comfortable with, you need to be minimalistically proficient with it, meaning you need to not be afraid of what you're picking up. If you're 100% confident in that weapon, it becomes a tool rather than a liability. That is critical. But your first responsibility, and I'm not a liberal, I'm not an anti-gun law guy or anything like that, but I do believe that you need to understand that your number one defense is to get out of the situation. And it doesn't, I don't care if you lose everything, every material item in your home. Your life is what's valuable, not the person breaking into your house. Your life is what's valuable. And the only thing that you can do to guarantee that your life is going to be preserved is to get out of that situation. Naturally, if there's family members or loved ones involved, they come into play as well. But so in Eric's thought of thinking about the situation before you go into it, before you even buy a gun, before you even train on any kind of weapons platform, know how to leave your home. It doesn't matter if it's your bedroom or your kitchen or your bathroom. Know that you have the option. As soon as you hear something that freaks you out, you can leave. You can just get away from the situation, call the cops, let them deal with it. Again, your loved ones are a whole different ball of wax. But if it's personal, individual safety, I say your best option is to get out, because even picking up that gun, even being proficient with it, that doesn't mean you don't end up in a firefight. And if it does get to that position, to that point where you're in a firefight, you're every bit as likely to die as the person you're trying to kill. So that is my advice. Eric, use your head. Craig, know your neighborhood, know your neighbors. Great advice. I'll jump in there with understand that your best defense is to be out of that situation. And guys, I appreciate your time. It was a 2-hour program, and this has been GnP 10 with our first guest ever, Eric Lovely. We will be back next week. Craig, any thoughts? Craig already left us. He had to go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still here. Yeah, I'm recording. I have to be here. No, I would say that, we'll see
you're the co-host, so wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll see you next week for GnP 10.
11.
Like that. 11. We'll see you next week for GnP 11.
Wait a minute. Was this 9 or was this 10?
This is 10.
Okay,
I listened to 9 yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So see you next week for GnP 11. I can only imagine what it's going to be about. Who knows?
Well, it's going to be politics, because we've done Guns 2 programs running, so I want to throw some politics in there, because there's plenty.
Hey, I consider guns politics too.
I consider guns is the final option of politics.
That's
How about
right.
that?
It's just the next expression of my freedom of speech and
That's
my
right.
Second Amendment.
That's right. It is the end result of a failure of politics. How about that?
There you go.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us for GnP 10. We'll be back next week. Have a good night, everybody. Peace out. Yo. Bye.